Oh, boy.
Everybody, here we go.
Jeffrey, you got to get a sucking from me, buddy.
That was an aggressive lift by Dad.
Come on, break the record, Jeff.
Oh, this is 10 seconds, 12 seconds, 15 seconds.
Over the record. Oh, my God.
It's a new record.
Let me have the mic. Can I have the mic? So blow, Seminole wind, blow like you're never gonna blow again.
Well, I'm here. I'm not sure where Corey went. He was supposed to come out here. He's supposed to be here for this big win. The Noles had lost. Oh, it's coming in hot.
I made it.
Let's cheer for a good team again.
Cheers. Go Noles.
Go Noles.
Hi guys, nice to see y'all. It's been a long time.
Welcome in, Warchant Game Day. It is Florida State and Miami. I'm Jeff. That is Tom, and we appreciate you being here with us on a Saturday in the fall, which is normally reserved for special times. We'll see. Does Florida State have a means by which to shock all of us and give us a memory in the fall that we'll never forget? Not unlike what you just saw last night with a Grand Slam walk-off in the World Series, which was awesome. But that said, how you doing, Tom? You feel good about today? How's the day after your birthday treating you?
Oh, well, 38's an unbelievable number. You got to tell you.
Told you. I knew it. I guessed it. I first guessed it.
Yeah.
I said you were going to be off to a great start this year. Here we go.
Yeah, outstanding. There was pizza, wine, and Domino's. That's a good night for a 38-year-old right there.
Pizza, wine, and Domino's. All right. That's high living.
It is high living. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. It was an excellent night. Hopefully we're in a place where 38's too much to ask for, buddy. But 24, 27, I mean, do we dare to dream? Could we possibly reach these unforeseen heights this particular season where we climb into the upper 20s? I'm trying to find a way. Special teams touchdown, maybe a short field, because Cam Ward does have a propensity to turn the ball over and make things interesting. There's something that the Pac-12 audience talked about. I know one of your pals, Jeff Schwartz, is one of those. The Cam Ward experience. There is an experience that comes with him. It's not on the level of Jameis Winston, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions in the NFL, but it's something akin to that where he can gift you the football every once in a while. I'm just trying to find a way on an early Saturday morning, 10 hours before kickoff, that we can get into the 24-27 area. If we can do that, who knows? Maybe it gets a little interesting.
Well, I think it's interesting that, you look at it that side of the ball. You're talking about Florida State's offense against Miami's defense, because that's what you have to do in order to get to 27. You're going to have to move the ball. You're going to have some success. Cam Ward is not going to gift you 3 touchdowns. He might gift you 1. So you're going to have to do something to create some semblance of an offense and to take some pressure off your young quarterbacks. And I don't know what that is per se. I saw somebody in the chat right before we came on said this needs to be more like a high school game, and talked about the kinds of plays that you need to call. And it made me laugh. His own run plays, waggle. Yeah. We ran a ton of waggle in my high school. Love to waggle. Love the waggle. If you got an athletic quarterback, it's especially cool because cross the face of the linebacker. If you're open, throw it. If not, take off, young man. Take off. It's not difficult. You're going to have to figure out early on who's out there up front for Florida State. My biggest fear coming into this game is they simply will not be able to block Miami. That's fear number 1. Fear number 2 is that Cam Ward has played better than he ever has in his entire life in this Miami offense. And it's partly because they have a lot of things, unfortunately, that Florida State does not. They have very dependable receivers and tight ends. They have a very, very good offensive line. They have a feature back. And they have a quarterback that's played a ton of football and seen a lot of things and is very, very, very calm and collected in the pocket. The only time you really see Cam Ward get, I guess greedy is the way to put it. He'll hold the ball a little too long if he doesn't respect the opponent's defensive line. So this is a day where I think if you're Josh Farmer, go get paid, man. This is your time. This has not been a good year for Patrick Payton. If you look at pressure rates with him, it's way down. He just hasn't been a great player. He has to go have a big night for this Florida State team. I think obviously you hope you have a very motivated bunch up front because that could create some of the havoc that you need to create. But Miami's offensive line is good. It's really good. And they have a back that if you don't care to tackle, you're going to be in trouble because he'll run you over. And it's weird. You kind of pick your poison when you look at Miami's offense against Florida State's defense. But Florida State's offense could have success depending on that group up front and whether or not they can block Miami. It sounds so rudimentary, and sometimes it just is. And with this Florida State bunch, it really has been. The fact that they don't protect very well, they don't run the ball very well, and when they do have time and they actually process and throw the ball to the right receiver, that receiver frequently drops it. It's going to have to be the best game of the year for Florida State, and it's not going to be close. They have to play better than they've played in any game so far, and they have to do so consistently well for this to be a game into the second half, which is a lot of what we talked about, Tom, yesterday on the Jeff Cameron show, which is that, okay, if I could try to create a scenario by which Florida State shocks the world and pulls off an upset in which they're 21-plus point underdogs coming into the game. Well, it depends on when you got it. Did you get it at 21? Did you get it at 21 and a half? Big difference, actually. The point is, they would have to put game pressure on Miami into the second half, where you begin to feel the shift in expectation. And, before the game, that place is going to be rocking because there's blood in the water. Miami fans, the last time they attended this game, watched Florida State win this game in their stadium 45-3. Obviously, that doesn't sit well. These players for Miami have an opportunity to send a message to recruits that will be there tonight. Have a message to send to the rest of the ACC as well. And so I think early you have to survive the punches. You have to find a way to stay cool, calm, collected, and be in this game well into the second quarter, get to halftime, head above water, 7-point game, 10-point game, something like that, where you have the opportunity to shift some game pressure onto Miami, because the longer it goes within a score, the more the pressure mounts for Miami. We'll see if Florida State's equipped to do that. It's a long shot, to say the least.
Yeah, I think the path there requires some hubris on their sideline. It could be through Cam Ward and the not respecting part of it, like you're talking about. It could be that the players themselves are already hyped up and they believe, but that by showing up, by definition, they're going to win the football game, which is just reviewing the film and seeing the failures, repeated failures from Florida State at this facet or that facet, and an assumption that the team that they see on film is the one that they're going to see before them. Florida State has a say in that if they elevate their play to catch Miami a little bit off guard. But I think you're going to need that element here. You're going to need, it's unfortunate. It reminds me of the conversations we had for years about baseball needing to be baseball when the inferior Florida State baseball team of 10 years ago, 5 years ago, took on the University of Florida. You're going to need some randomness, or you're going to need some help. Today is another one of those days where you're going to need some help. And Miami can help you by playing to the crowd rather than playing the game, by playing for style points rather than playing for substance. Those things can present themselves in a turnover or a mental error on a 3rd and 4 where you're going to continue the drive and now you're punting. And next thing you know, there's a decent size return or there's a hold or whatever. There's some kind of balance that shifts because you didn't take care of the details. You're going to need Mario Cristobal maybe to poorly manage a game. I mean, that's not unfathomable. Or you're going to need Miami to play down to the level of their competition. That's certainly something that this team has proven that they've done before. The problem with all of these points I'm making is you need something that is outside of you and outside of the sphere of your control to be added to the pot in order for a stew to be made that says, this is interesting into the third quarter and the fourth quarter.
Yeah, turnovers are usually the key there. The way that happens is the ball gets turned over. You get short fields. You find a way to create some momentum off those turnovers. I do think that's really the recipe here. I don't believe that Florida State straight up, man for man, offense for offense, defense for defense can beat Miami. They're not good enough. They haven't executed at a high enough level. They can't block it up, quite frankly. And, one of the worries that I have in this game, and listen, we try to be as objective as possible. Everybody knows here that I loathe Miami, but I can certainly look at a team and tell you if they're good, not good, strengths, weaknesses, those kinds of things. One of the things about Miami that stands out is that if you're Miami, obviously you're trying to get to the ACC championship game and win the ACC championship for the first time in your school history. What a magical moment it might be after all this time. For them, you would worry against the better teams that you face that your secondary is porous, that your secondary has some ugly numbers attached to it, that your secondary has struggled mightily at times to cover decent, average to decent wide receivers. The problem is Florida State has had substandard play at wide receiver, to say the least. That's putting it kindly. Secondly, they haven't been able to block it up long enough to expose secondaries down the field. Miami has been victimized down the field quite a bit. Where Miami is good are in the places that Florida State is not. And Miami is good on the defensive line. Miami is good at linebacker. Miami is a team that will, in the front seven, take advantage of your offensive line. And our offensive line has been simply terrible. I think if you go back and look at the other side of it, Tom, with Cam Ward, I'm very curious tonight to see what does Mario Cristobal choose as his modus operandi. Is he going to run the ball, even though it's sexier to throw it? And he's got a lot of weapons to throw, too. This is a good receiving core for Miami. In fact, very good. And the quarterback has been sensational. He's a Heisman candidate for a reason. Yet, I think this offensive line run blocks as well as most of what I've seen in the country. They are big, they're strong, and they have a bruising back that runs downhill. If I were playing Florida State and worried about a historical upset in the making, I would be thinking along the lines of, well, the history of my quarterback suggests he can turn it over. Maybe I don't put him in danger early on, and I just lean heavy on this defensive front, which isn't very deep for Florida State. It's good. The starters are good. It's not very deep. Maybe I just run the ball right at him and see how interested they are in making tackles against a 235-pound back that will run hard between the tackles.
Yeah, I think Florida State will be interested. My game plan would be to play the hits, put the linebackers and safeties in conflict with motion, get Restrepo on the move, pre-snap, whatever motions, jet motion, orbit motion, you name it. Just get them moving around and then play a two-man game against a key read defender. And I would make it the second level. I would make it the linebacker. Make them make decisions. Because I think what they're going to do.
Oh, hold on a second. So you isolate the linebackers for Florida State? Man, you should don't tell anybody.
I said I'm playing the hits here. That's what I'm doing. I'm testing them on wheels. I'm testing them on rails. I'm testing them with motion. I'm testing them with read. And look, because I think they're going to guess and get downhill and play at 100 miles an hour. I'm assuming that the Juice Criers of the world, I saw a sign of life from Omar Graham last week. Cam Riley's going to get downhill. Blake Nicholson's going to get downhill. Unless they're spying me, the quarterback, I'm assuming that they're going to guess and play with a lot of passion. I think that's how they're going to start the game. But if I confuse them, like many teams have before me tonight on this field, then I'm going to take
every one of them.
I will strip them of their confidence, and at that point, they're going to play slow and Katie bar the door. Because I think we're going to be very simple on defense tonight. Let's just say, I know that schematically we always are, but what I'm saying is I think we're going to be more man tonight. I hope to God, because if we're trying to play zone, this is a quarterback who's going to pick your butt apart. I hope we play man. You add the element of the spy with Peyton or Nicholson. Lord knows that Peyton's going to make a play on the first drive, and he'll let you know about it. But then after that, I'm not sure how many plays he's going to make. But this is what I hope, is that things are much more simple. But at that point, if I'm Miami, then you just put those key defenders in conflict and see if they've gotten smarter. And if they haven't, that's how you start to amass your confidence, strip them of their confidence, and rack up the scores. But I think that Florida State, on our end, we're going to be a downhill and be aggressive. Why not? Because tonight is such an opportunity. It doesn't erase 1-6. By no means does it do that. But it's worth more than just one win. It's a rivalry game, and they know what the opportunity is. They know they failed miserably, but tonight can at least redeem them for just a little bit of those sins of 1-6.
Oddly, I would tell you that if we were assessing value to wins, this is a 7-game value. If you win this game, it's as if we are an 8-win team.
We're 8-7 after tonight if we win.
If we win tonight, no, 8-6, Tom. If we win tonight,
8-6. I must be thinking about that Notre Dame game. My bad.
We are at that point a winning program. We have turned the corner. You beat Miami tonight. The other losses, well, they never happened. What a year it's been in Tallahassee. By the way, today's pregame show is brought to you by Hotel Indigo Tallahassee College Town. Whether you're a frequent guest, a business hosting your event, or stopping by the restaurant, bar, and rooftop before an FSU home game, Hotel Indigo Tallahassee wants to thank you for your continued support and being a part of the family. That's a good thing. If you want to host your next event with the best view of Doak Campbell in all town, call Jay Green at 850-755-9011. Hotel Indigo Tallahassee, welcome to our neighborhood. Yeah, it's an exercise, feels a bit like an exercise in futility. I would really like to spin it forward and tell you that I think there are some pockets of or elements of offense and defense that could favor us, but I just don't see it, Tom. Too many really, really talented players from Miami that are in a scheme that fits them. This is they've done a better job at Miami this year than they have in recent years of playing to that talent, understanding who they are, and playing that way. If they were a little bit better in the secondary, they'd be a very real threat in the playoff because their offense is so good. But their secondary is bad. It'll get exposed against a really good team in the playoff. We just haven't been the team to be able to do that. Yeah,
no, agreed. I think one thing on the defense quickly is they do have a right to feel confident about what they're doing because last week's performance, albeit against Duke, was they did what they were supposed to do in that game. You know, I get that Duke might have pulled off a little bit, called off the dogs because they were ahead. But still, in the throes of the game, the first half, the game was not decided. They were under 3 yards of play. They ended up averaging just over 3 yards of play. After all was
the Florida State defense dominated Duke, and we couldn't get a win. It's ridiculous.
And look, the corners covered very well last week. Now, I think you need an officiating crew that'll let some touching and holding and all that kind of stuff go because we were a little grabby. But that's the kind of officiating I know that you're in favor of because it's about, you got to force your way through that. You got to force your way through contact and separate by being men. But they should feel good about themselves because that was a performance that they envisioned that they could be turning in all season long. And then, not for nothing, it'll be used as a cut up against him if it doesn't work out and Miami puts up a lot of points. But Adam Fuller exuded confidence in the Sunday press conference. And they moved it back earlier one day this week because Florida State, was staggered. They played a Friday night last week against Duke. But he seemed very pleased with the plan that they would have for Cam Ward in Miami tonight. He was bullish on that. Now, again, that clip will be used against him if it doesn't work out. But I found that fascinating. The defense should be feeling confident. Their coordinator feels confident. That's the path to this being a game. We all know that. It's empty possessions for Miami. It's turnovers generated. It's all the only way that this is a game in the third quarter is if the defense elevates its level of play. That with 6:25 left on the clock in the third quarter, Miami's at 21 points or 24 points.
I would be stunned. You would really have to say it would be one of the stranger results of the year if Florida State is in this game in the fourth quarter. I don't, there's been nothing so far, no context clues for that. There hasn't been anything that we've seen play out on the field for Florida State or Miami that would suggest that you truly are banking on a rivalry game turning into something special because they sometimes do, even in years in which one of the rivals is down, because there's an added what for to a rivalry like this. And I think, again, whenever you're the favorite, and Florida State has largely been the favorite in this series the last few years, obviously, has had their way with Miami. And when you go into those games, we know how we feel as spectators and watching the game. Your one fear is that you don't take care of business early and you give the other opponent, in this case an arch rival, a reason to believe, a reason to hang around and be a little bit more, I call it green, playing above your head. You begin to see teams that are heavy underdogs, big underdogs, play better than you've seen them play at any point in any game leading to this one, if, in fact, you're not stepping on their neck early. So the turnovers of which you speak that you're hoping to get, the help that you're hoping to get from Miami, you have to get it early. You have to have it happen. Something good has to happen to you early. Whether that you break off, like if you look at it this way, Florida State has had a very hard time, we all know, running the football with any consistency at all. They really haven't been able to block it up, and that's made them one-dimensional in the first quarter of football games. Last week being the exception, where they incorporated the quarterback's legs and opened up the running game a little bit against Duke, but they really haven't been able to sustain anything close to a running game. Well, if early in this game you block it up, there's a moment, who knows, maybe it's counter, something happens like that, and you take 170 yards to the house, and there begins to be an infused belief now that you're capable. Miami on the wrong end of some sort of big play like that. Now, all it takes from there is something simple. Again, you're needing the help of your opponent here, but, Miami gets the ball back after something like that. It's a 7-0 game. Whoa, what do we have here? You hear the announcer starting to talk. And you press a little bit. You get a little greedy because your players are better than our players. And the next thing you know, Cam does get greedy. And it's a pick six. And we're all in shock because, Florida State's defense doesn't do that. They don't create turnovers. It never happens. I mean, we watch a million years of Florida State football, and apparently it's illegal for them to create turnovers. But let's just say it happens here. Well, now you got a ball game. Now all of a sudden you got a little something. But again, that sounds awfully wishy. It's not the kind of thing that I like to have to sit here and talk about and address because it doesn't really involve Florida State's players out executing, outplaying, out physicaling Miami's players. It involves circumstance and oddity and randomness. And those aren't the kinds of things that you want to hang your hat on when you go into a football game. You'd rather just turn to your personnel and say, I think in this look, we can expose this look. And Miami likes to run this, and when they do, we're going to do this, and I think we'll win doing that. I don't have any of those things to address here. Those things don't exist. They haven't been shown on film this year. You can tell me, Jeff, Miami's secondary can be taken advantage of. Only if you give the quarterback time to throw. Florida State has not done that. Florida State's offensive line has given the quarterbacks very little time to throw.
So if you're in the position that you're talking about, where things start well, we often have seen this moment where Florida State is the heavily favored team and somebody has you not quite on the ropes, but they have a chance to drive home a point in the first quarter or early in the game. You can go back to 2013 where it's 14-0 Boston College, I believe. And Steve Adazio has a 4th and short and he kicks the field goal. Remember that? That was in that moment you said, oh, well, they just lost. Because
what is he doing?
Yeah, what is he doing? In this moment, they lost. It might have been 14-7 and he kicked a field goal to go up 17-7. But at any rate, that decision in that moment, you felt like, well, really? You think that we're only going to score 20 points today? You need to keep scoring touchdowns, my man, and keep us down. Keep your foot on the throat. So I ask you, if Florida State is in a situation, because I'd love for the situation to come up. It's 4th and 2 at the Miami 13-yard line. We're up 7-0 in the first quarter. Fictional as it may feel right now, I'm just asking where your mind is at. What do? You take the 10-0 lead, or do you have to go for it to press the issue, go up 14-0?
Yeah, I know what the math tells you. I know what the modern analytics tell you. I'm kicking the field goal and going up 10-0. I'm going to be a 1957 coach because I don't believe we're going to have lots of opportunities to score. And 2-score leads feel different than 1-score leads. And I understand what you're saying. At the same time, I'm taking 10-0. I'm getting my team off the field feeling confident that they are able, at this point anyhow, to play with Miami. It feels like it would be too deflating to go for it on 4th and 2 and not get it. Your short yardage game has been terrible. you have unless you've got something in your back pocket. And, this has been an element that has been disappointing to me this year, the creativity. I constantly come back to the lack of creativity within this offense right now. Mike really made his bones on being very, very creative when he was outmanned early on in his FSU tenure. When we watched him, we thought, oh, this is a guy who's understanding the situation. He's been uber aggressive at times. He understands that they're going to have to really pull out all of the tricks in order to compete when he first got here, because the roster wasn't where it needed to be and they were outmanned in several games. They were able to create offense in some ways that were certainly non-traditional. And I just haven't seen that. He hasn't treated this team the way he treated those teams. And I think there's a reason for that. I think he's still in denial and shock, or for much of this season was, because I believe he thinks this team was a veteran-laden team that had played a lot of football and that they weren't going to have to fall back on that sort of ingenuity. I think he thought that, listen, they'll come around. We'll get some consistency here. We'll find the things they do well, and we'll fall back on that. But you and I and many others in the fan base were kind of screaming from the mountaintops early on, you're not who you thought you were. We're going to have to do something different. This isn't what you thought it was. That's the great folly in the preseason assessment of this team, was that you thought it would be this. We all did, taking your lead, and it is not that at all. So you're going to have to start to do the things that you really wished you were beyond at this point in year 5 and reach back for something imaginative to survive the day. And we haven't seen it all that much. So when we talk about a 4th and 2 in that situation, I get where the math tells us to go, which is to go for it. I get why philosophically you are leading us down that path in the discussion. I also know that this is a fragile team that I don't think would survive the disappointment of not converting on 4th and 2. And I know that this is a team that frequently eschews opportunities to put points on the board by trying to be aggressive with a group that can't block. I'm not a fan of just taking the math and saying, oh, well, statistically speaking, this is one of those you have to go for. Know the situation, know your team, know the psyche, know the personnel. Some teams you would say 100% you're going for it there. Others you understand probably don't recover from not making it on 4th and 2. And there's no evidence that you really have a good chance to make it on 4th and 2. What, are you going to line up and bludgeon them? No. You're going to count on a receiver to make a play? No. You got a tight end that you can dump it off to, feel good about? Maybe the young kids. Put a young kid in that situation on the road at night against a rival, 4th and 2?
That is a very thorough and well thought out answer. It's almost like you were prepared for that question. I wasn't coming at it from an analytics place. I was coming at it from how desperate are you? How desperate are you? I wanted to see what your mindset was. And your answer is you're not desperate. You're in a controlled aggression mindset rather than a go for broke mindset. Which
I'm pragmatic in this game. Yeah.
Well, you just told me you're a little bit more confident about it being within the realm of possibility, that Florida State is not so hopeless that you might as well go for it on a 4th and 2 because you ain't going to be back down there again. So what you're telling me, inadvertently, I believe a little bit here, is that in that situation at 7-0 in the first quarter with the ball in the red zone, you got a little bit more hope.
What I'm telling you is, and you created the scenario that we're reacting to here. You created a scenario I don't think is going to exist, which is that we are in the lead on the road with the ball once again deep in Miami territory. I don't see it happening, buddy. But if it did, yes, at that point, I would have more confidence than I have sitting before you today. If it did.
Sometimes it's put in such nice and neat terms that it reminds you of what it is we're talking about and why you just every once in a while, when we're not even on the air, we're not talking to each other, we're by ourselves in our car at a random stoplight, and we just go, damn it. You just get frustrated about the team. Christopher Adams on Facebook. The fact that everything is so vanilla, both on offense and defense, is concerning 5 years in.
Oh, 100%. It is. And they have to be right now, Christopher. They don't have a choice. They don't have
Which,
I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face.
What the hell? He's right. Like, are you kidding? It's 5 years in. You should have a system.
Yeah, you got to have good players. And secondly, I will tell you, none of the stuff, if you're going to talk about offense in particular, none of the stuff that maybe you'd want to do and how creative you'd like to be is possible because your offensive line is awful. I'm going to continue to talk about this. So you guys out there, a lot of you played football, and certainly you've been around football and you watch football. We all know that at its core, football, offensive football, is very, very simple because it begins and in essence ends with what is possible with the offensive line. My son is playing in high school right now, and he's a wide receiver. It's very difficult to watch his offense because they've had myriad injuries on the offensive line, and they don't have kids in spots that can block because you've had a lot of young kids have to step in, and they're not physically capable. So when I watch his games, I'm sad for the quarterback. I'm sad for all the skill position players because nothing's allowed to happen. As soon as the ball is snapped, there's pressure. Somebody's reset the line of scrimmage. They're 3 and 4 yards into your backfield before you've had a chance to scan, before you've had a chance to make your reads. When they try to run, they get blown up at 2nd and 14. I mean, it's that bad. And so you're never in a position to be creative on offense. You're never in a position to kind of play the game. I think it's akin to playing golf where you're playing golf swing instead of the game of golf. When you can't successfully hit the ball and repeat your swing, you really can never strategically make your way around a course. Because if you're trying to map out a game plan for a hole, that game plan goes out the window if you tow it off the tee into the woods or you hosel it 17 yards straight left. You're not playing golf. You got to hit the ball, man. Once we start hitting the ball, we can start talking about where we want to land it and why and what angles we're trying to take to the hole. Florida State this year has done an awful lot of not hitting the golf ball. You can't really call plays that you'd like to run or that work against this defense if you can't block on the most fundamental level. And they don't block, and they do not communicate. And it is why I would fire Alex Atkins tomorrow or yesterday. It's unacceptable. Now, it's not all Alex. There's a lot of coaches on this staff that I would make changes with, and we'll see who Mike chooses to stay and who he chooses to go. And I think he's got to do drastic things this offseason. But if you can't block in year 5, even a little bit, and they don't, you really are playing football with your hand tied behind your back. You don't have an opportunity to exploit things that are perhaps weaknesses on opposing defenses. There's no jumping off point.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the through line. The last time we were in this building, what did we do? We ran our play. We ran what the base of this offense has been about at Florida State to the hilt. 45-3 was because counter came at you over and over and over, and Miami had no response for it. It scared the living daylights out of our conference, out of our future opponents, to the point that they schemed against counter, and then it was okay, sometimes successful, sometimes not. But it's just, since that point, that was the pinnacle of counter in Mike Norvell's history at Florida State, was this game 2 years ago. It has been a steady decline into a place where even with some of the same guys that were there on that field that night running the same play, it looks like they've never been coached to do it before. It looks like they're incapable of running it, which is wild to me because as you're building a program on offense or defense, this is 101 stuff, high school stuff. Hey, guys, if nothing else, we're going to be able to run this play. This one thing is what we're about. We're going to rep it until you can do it in your sleep. I wake you up at 3 a.m. and I assemble you on a field without stretching. You're going to be able to run that play. And the system of gap, if you want to call it that in general, or counter, whatever, everybody in your program knows how to run that play. And yet what we've seen last year was great inconsistency with counter. And some of that had to do with the line and some of that had to do with the tight ends. It doesn't matter who it is. But the one thing that we want to be defined on, that we want to run plays off of and scare an opponent to death about, which gives us an advantage because they're looking for one thing where we're going to hit them with another, we can't run at all. And, Mike Norvell talks about it sometimes on Monday press conferences or after practices, and he says, well, sometimes we have bad tracks in our blocking. Sometimes the footwork isn't right. Sometimes the technique is wrong. And it's like, this is your number one thing. This is how you define everything else. It was with this concept. Since the bye week, the second bye week, Mike Norvell says we have to look at different schematics and different things. But consider how far that one play, which defined our offensive success 2 seasons ago, has fallen. This game is a perfect through line to compare the notes. You were one way 2 years ago in 45-3, and here you are now. That the jab that you want to establish in your offense, it's like you're an amputee. You got nothing. There's no arm there. There's nothing to hit with. It's just wild.
If you'd like to highlight these points, Tom, this is a way to do it. It's not opinion. Florida State's offense, net EPA per play is 121st in the country. There are offensive success rate, 34%. That's 130th in the country. Offensive success rate passing the football is 128th in the country. Offensive success rate rushing the football is 117th in the country. If you look offensively, our EPA per drive, 128th in the country. Conversely, if you're going to look at Miami's numbers in those same categories, I won't go through all of this, but I will just read to you. Number 4 in the country, number 4 in the country, number 5 in the country, number 5 in the country, number 4 in the country, number 3 in the country. That's a stark difference. I think if you go back through and look at other elements, that is disturbing. If you look at Florida State's defense against the pass currently, just EPA per pass, Florida State's 104th. Miami is 4th on offense doing that. There are number available yards, for example, is an interesting stat. Miami's number 1 in the country. Florida State's defense is 100th in the country. We could go on and on and on and on with these numbers. They are all that kind of ugly. There are many 100 and somethings next to Florida State's categories. There are single digits next to many of Miami's categories. It is objectively true that one has been an abject failure and the other has been a soaring success.
Yeah, this is where the defensive line is going to have to define any hope tonight for Florida State. You're talking about pass defense. What's the best way to improve on pass defense? It's your front 4 eats. You don't have to bring extra pressure.
That is correct. You are correct. That is the recipe for a win, is that Florida State's front 4 beats Miami's offensive line. It's entirely possible, and they would have to not only create havoc like you're describing, they'd have to create turnovers.
Yeah, that's the path.
That is the path. That is the path. And maybe, just maybe, as we take a quick break and come back and rally for the finish, I will just tell you that maybe this game's made easier to watch if you had some cornbread hemp THC. Might be a lot easier to watch, and a healthy happy hour. It's a little past happy hour when we kick it off tonight, but nonetheless, a natural and healthier way to experience a football game, or just being. How about that? Just being. Can save some real money. No synthetic ingredients. It is USDA organic THC edibles from my friends at Cornbread. Go to, you see it on the screen right there, cornbreadhemp.com/warchant. Use the promo code warchant at checkout. You're saving 30%. Damn, 30% is doing some things. Perfectly legal, I might add. They shipped some to my house, and I've given them a go. Rather enjoyed the mellow happy hour of which I speak. cornbreadhemp.com/warchant. Use warchant for 30% off your first order. More Warchant Game Day in a moment.
Hey, this is Jay Green from Hotel Indigo Tallahassee. Can I stop and say thank you? Thank you for telling your guests to stay with us. Thank you for hosting your corporate meetings and social events in our rooftop meeting space. Thank you for hanging out with us on FSU football game days. Believe it or not, this sales guy isn't selling anything. I just want to say thank you. But if you've never seen our rooftop and I can ever help, Give us a call, 850-755-9011. We are Hotel Indigo Tallahassee. Welcome to our neighborhood.
Appreciate Hotel Indigo always. You asked me this week about the amount of times we'll see both quarterbacks or how many series we'll see both quarterbacks. I think we will see both quarterbacks. Moving forward, I think we'll see both quarterbacks. Obviously, Brock will start the game, and if Brock is playing well, there'll be no reason to just suddenly pull the trigger and go to Luke. I think it's a game-by-game, quarter-by-quarter, maybe even series-by-series look at these two individuals. Remember this about Luke Kromenhoek, who seems to show certainly the more physical tools at the position that you want to see. That is to say, a very lively arm. He's also a big kid, good athlete. He is a true freshman. I mean, this man has not been here very long at all. And unfortunately, what we now know is that his time here is marred by poor play on the offensive line and catastrophically bad play from the wide receivers. So when you are putting him into the game, you are putting him almost by definition in an untenable situation frequently. And I think you have to be careful regarding how often you do that to a true freshman. I'm not in the quarterback room. Mike has had a chance to certainly talk to Luke Kromenhoek numerous times in a way that I haven't. He comes from a football family. His dad was a really good football player. He's got football athleticism in his family that runs through for generations. So it tells me he's likely a very tough kid. He grew up in the game. He knows it really well. And he could probably handle a lot of these nuances of the game, right? The failures of football when you're overwhelmed and you're young and you don't physically have the guys around you to compete. Seems to me he can probably handle it better than most. I hope that's true. And if it is, then you're more apt to put him out there understanding that the long-term ramifications aren't nearly as bad as it is for maybe somebody else who's not in the same situation without the same background. But I do think it's worth monitoring just to see how often they employ him into the game plans, because he is a true freshman. Again, a true freshman, not a redshirt freshman. He hasn't been here for a year to get acclimated and figure everything out. This has been probably pretty eye-opening. Brock, I think, can handle most of these situations. I thought he responded quite well, if we're being honest, to having been pulled from the game after those 3 straight turnovers. Obviously, that would shake anybody to their core. But I thought when he got back in there, he played with a lot of confidence. You saw some kind of renewed confidence. So, I like his mental makeup. He's got some things to him physically that I like as well. I don't think he's as talented as Luke Kromenhoek. But you are clearly playing for 2025 now, and these are the 2 kids that will be battling for the job. Whoever it is that wins that job, I most assuredly think the other will leave. Mike, when he talks about these 2 young men, certainly I think likes what he has. Most of us sitting here today seem to think, based on sort of the enthusiasm that he talks about Luke Kromenhoek with, that that's the guy that he's leaning towards maybe sooner rather than later. If you play Luke Kromenhoek on the road at night against a top 10 Miami football team, it means you have the utmost confidence in who he is, because that is a tough spot for anybody.
Yeah, I hope that if they go to him, when they go to him, they've already repped what they're going to do independent of game situation. Because last week's game, what's interesting to me is they had a plan for him at Clemson. They shared that afterwards. Mike Norvell said that afterwards. They had a plan, but the time wasn't right to get him in because of the game circumstances. It felt like Luke's entry into the game against Duke was an emergency replacement, a necessity, rather than we have a plan for Luke, let's get him in and let's run the following plays. It was, oh God, Brock's turned the ball over on 3 consecutive plays. Get in there, kid, and figure it out. So it just felt a little bit helter-skelter. I would imagine that if you're going to roll Luke out tonight, it would be with a preset, pre-repped plan that if it's 17-0, if it's 7-3, you're running the same plays. And I hope that's the way it looks, because the one thing that scared me for Luke and his development is that his internal clock was ass. It was. He just held on to the ball too long. By the second, third drive, you're like, kid, go. Kid, throw the ball. Kid, run. Do something. That's how you're going to get hurt. He's already under enough duress without having to stand there too long. But there were times where the pass protection was actually pretty good, and you're 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and you're like, Luke, this is not high school. Get rid of the ball. So for his own safety, for his own development, if I'm Mike and Tony Tokars, I'm watching that very, very closely, because a big part of being able to play college football, any football as you go up a level, is that your internal clock, the eyes in the back of your head, are exceptional. And to me, Luke looked rattled last week in that regard. Did he make better throws than Brock is capable of? Absolutely he did. There is no doubt about any of that. He did. But as the game went on, drive for drive, and you have to settle into the game, I didn't see him settle. I saw him go numb in the brain a few times, and I don't think that's an indictment of him. I just think that that's a true freshman in his first setting, with the speed of the game and the moment getting to him a little bit. You have to watch that very, very closely tonight if you have a plan for him. But again, if you do have preset plays, then he has expectations. I think part of it was that it was helter-skelter. If you had a plan for him and it's like, this is where you look, this is where the ball goes, you can improvise once you get comfortable, but this is where it needs to be. You won't see him standing in the pocket and holding. You'll see him get rid of the football.
These are the telltale signs of youth. It happens every time you put a young quarterback in the game. You go down to Gainesville, a couple of hours away. DJ Lagway's first appearances were marred by wild inconsistencies, holding onto the ball too long, throwing late. My biggest fear is watching young quarterbacks throw late. Late in the middle of the field is how you get a receiver killed, or it's a pick six. We see this a lot. Late to the boundary is really a problem. We see that sometimes too. So I understand that as you seek answers at the quarterback position before going into the offseason, we say this a lot, but success is not linear. You're going to watch the up and down, herky-jerky play of young quarterbacks trying to figure it out. Game speed, what they're seeing with the defensive looks that are usually far more complicated than anything they saw in high school. Defensive coordinators baiting young kids into throws, those kinds of things by certain looks that they give. And I think that's the one area where I caution Florida State fans. We have to be patient, understanding that, and it's impossible right now. I mean, they're 1-6. Patience went out the window a long time ago, but that's patience in regards to results. That's patience in regards to the season, not the development of a young quarterback. And the development of a young quarterback features an awful lot of ups and downs. And I think we have to be willing to take that ride because the alternative is it doesn't exist. You don't have anybody else that you can go to. You wouldn't go to DJ even if you could, but you can't. So your situation is such that you're going to have to go along for the ride, and those inconsistencies are part of that ride. Frustratingly, I just wish we were watching these kids learn the position with a competent offensive line. The answers become a little bit more apparent if you have more than 1 second to throw.
Yeah, or the fear of it, even when it doesn't happen. Maybe part of holding the ball is I'm expecting to get hit. Oh my God, I'm not being touched. Like Chan says here, unfortunately, Luke looks nothing like Lagway. Well, if Kentron catches the ball in the end zone,
touchdown on a laser throw, a perfect throw, his first in college. Yeah, man, I don't know. We know that just yet. Also, Lagway is admittedly 240 plus pounds. He physically looks a lot different. Yes.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that catch is made. He plays with a greater level of confidence. There's inspiration, and you see the result in the stat line, and you feel a little bit better about the performance, about what he's got. Like the other one, the Hakeem alligator arms play down the right sideline. He gets hit as he throws that ball. That's going to be, if placed properly by Luke, a walk-in touchdown up the sidelines, but he's getting hit as he delivers the ball, which is why the adjustment towards the middle of the field must be made. Again, I'm not trying to play Jimbo and say that that's out the gate. What I'm telling you is there's a couple of moments there where he's in position, Luke is, to make a play, and even if Hakeem catches that ball on the adjustment as he should, he takes some punishment for the catch. I mean, now you're talking about 2 downfield shots, and it changes completely the way that you perceive Luke's performance. Here's the problem, though. The fact that those plays weren't made affects Luke's performance because as a true freshman, you're affected by the things around you so much more than you would be as a veteran quarterback. As a veteran, you flush it, you might yell at your guy, and then you move on to the next play. But you're so deeply affected by a sieve of pass blocking, by drops from the receivers, and now you're rat trapping. You just got hit low, which that looked like, oh, God, as it was happening in the moment, and he's hit below the knee, you're thinking, you've got to be kidding me. This is just the continuation of a season where everything that can go wrong does go wrong for Florida State. Thankfully, Luke bounced up. But the influences of the outside matter more to a true freshman quarterback than they would a third or fourth year player. So that's all part of it too. And that is a big part of my fear tonight. You can't coach by being afraid, but I mean, look, just from the outside looking in, if Luke takes the field, I'm saying, please don't get him killed. That's the first thing I'm thinking about.
I think Tony Tokarz has to really stress to both his young quarterbacks that if you go through the process and you do everything right within that play, the result of that play is no longer on you. You have to understand that, Brock made a perfect throw to Benson, who drops it early in the game. And if that ball is caught, who knows? Do you go down there and go up 10-0? If you go up 10-0, you're going to beat Duke. They're eminently predictable. They have no dynamic weapons. Their quarterback is ass. Your defensive line is dominating the day. You're up 2 scores at that point. Changes the entire complexion of the game. But, of course, he dropped it because that's what he does. And when that happened, you allow a team to hang around. None of those kinds of things can happen tonight. I mean, for this to be an upset, it would be a magnificent upset and really stunning at this point. If it is going to happen, the ball Hakeem dropped, the ball Portier dropped, sweet Jesus, the ball that Benson dropped. There's several of these every week, by the way. I still struggle to imagine how it is that we only have credit for 20 drops or 21 drops. I don't even know how that's possible. I think I've counted 105 drops. But anyhow, maybe I'm a tougher grader than PFF. But those guys got to catch the damn ball. And you get so many opportunities in a game to make a play that could change the complexion of a game, especially against this team on the road at night, outgunned, trying to create some sort of confidence momentum. When a play is there to be made, it has to be made. So we'll see. The data points and the clues that have preceded this game suggest those plays will not be made, but outliers happen. Maybe they will make those plays tonight, Tom. And if they do, maybe those young quarterbacks begin to develop some confidence in those guys and let it rip. Let it rip. Have a lot of fun. I would love to be able to go into this game, and I hope they are. Really, it's a lot to ask, but you've got nothing to lose. You're 21-point favorites, underdogs. This is stunning in my lifetime to see Florida State be a 21-point underdog against Miami. It really is a reflection of just how south things have gone here. But because you are so overwhelmingly at a disadvantage across the board, play footloose and throw the kitchen sink, Mike. I mean, I want to see, I want to be chuckling on my couch that we just ran that play. Yeah. Because we've watched teams do that to Florida State. You remember that Clemson game? You and I bring it up a lot. That crazy Clemson game when Jimbo was here. And basically, 2012. Clemson came in knowing they weren't the better team, knowing they weren't going to beat Florida State. And they threw everything under the sun at Florida State's defense and hit on almost everything that they threw at Florida State early. And Jimbo was chuckling. Jimbo was like, I got us. Don't worry about it. I got us tonight. And they played they had a good time. But the point more of my example is that Clemson team did that. They just threw every gadget thing they had and every kind of crazy ass, well, let's see if they're ready for this, boom or bust type plays. And if you hit on a few, I really would like to see that. I don't know that we will. Really, all the indicators have been that we'll be in a show, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, the other thing is when they ran those plays, they executed them. They looked like they were prepared to do so. And that is the number one indictment on this group outside of offensive line aptitude is often, very often, both phases of the game, the major phases of the game, they look like they haven't repped what they're doing. I mean, that's the thing where it's hard to envision an upset when you're doing basic things and it looks like you've never communicated through noise or you've never communicated through an awkward front or a blitz look. And your center and your guard, who are both 4 or 5 year players, look at each other like, was that your responsibility or was that mine? And your linebacker and your safety look at each other like, why are we both covering the same guy? And they do this thing and they go, damn it, as it's 3rd and 16 and they gain 23 yards because there was a coverage bust. That is why it's hard to summon the courage to say that, oh, wrong team's favored today. 21 points, throw it out the window. We're going Northern Illinois this evening. It's hard to do that because we look confused way too often. If we don't look confused tonight very often, there's a chance we're in this football game.
Not likely. I'm going to take the Canes to win big, 51-10-ish, somewhere in there, 51-17, something like that. Tom, you got a final thought on that as we wrap here on the Warchant Game Day?
Oh, man. No, I mean, I had them breaking 40. I'm starting to come down off of that. I don't know what Miami's team total is on the Hard Rock app, but we might hold them into the 30s tonight, partner. I think we might.
Well, I'll tell you this. That is solely dependent on what they choose to be their mode of attack because they got the choice of either one. Mm-hmm. They can do anything they want. I think that if you're right, the reason is Mario Cristobal, a former offensive lineman, loves to run the ball. He has a bruiser for a back. There is no more emasculating thing to do to a defense than to line up and run it down their throat. So if that's the way that he chooses to operate tonight, it's a shortened game. And you might have the chance to hang around and only give up 38, something of that ilk. I could see him choosing that for the reasons I just stated. I could also see him saying, we can block this up and we've got arguably the best quarterback in the nation. Let's throw it around the lot.
Well, let's hope he pulls a Mac Brown. You know, when we beat Mac Brown, I think it was the COVID year. You remember that? It was at home. And they had Javonte Williams and who was their other back? They had a 2-back system, and they both were really, really good.
Really good.
And they were dominating early, as we expected them to. And for some reason, Mac Brown said, hey, Sam Howell, you're going to throw it all over the lot tonight. And we're watching this in real time going, is he doing this?
He lost it? Yeah.
Is Mac going to do this? You're kidding me. Javonte and again, the other kid was I think the higher draft pick. They were averaging 5-6 yards a clip, and he's turning it down and throwing the ball. Hey, man, you could see that tonight where maybe Mario does something and his game plan is such that he wants to achieve this thing that is not best for them on the field tonight. And you're in the second quarter going, oh, Mario, are you getting involved? Are you getting involved, Mario? The people in the stands are saying, stop it, Mario. Don't do what you do. And that breeds its own kind of atmosphere. And you're saying, oh, no, he's lost a little bit. You need the outside help, but that's not without the realm. That's not outside the realm of possibility because old Cristobal will do that dance every once in a while.
I was trying to find, Tom, the team total for Miami. I'm struggling to do so right now. We know what the spread is, but I don't – yeah, it's Miami minus 21.5 as we sit here today. Of course, the over-under is 54.5 right now, so you can put the game together there. But, yeah, it's it's hard. It's hard to imagine that their team total is anything less. It's hard to imagine their team total is anything less than 34. It would,
Yeah, 34.5, 35. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, it would to me. Well, listen, they score a ton of points. That's one of the reasons that they're undefeated right now. They give up a ton of points, but they score a ton of points.
The Hard Rock is not offering it right now. The inconsistency with that is quite annoying. This is why we need competition in this. Yeah, we need competition in this.
Yeah, it's crazy. We want to thank Ben, our producer for the show today. Tom, enjoy the day with the parents. Maybe we're all in shock when we reconvene on the post game tonight with Tom and Gene. Maybe we're all I'll be calling in, Tom. if Florida State pulls the upset. I'll video in and we'll all do a shot of something together. It would be stunning a result, but that's 15 minutes after, or maybe it begins early, according to Tom.
If it gets ugly, join us in the fourth quarter, won't you please? Yes, if this is the graphic that's on the screen, if that's the graphic that's on the screen and you are on the screen with us, it means that there's very, very good news.
Oh yeah, that graphic right there in the corner.
If you're on the screen with this on the screen, well, we're about to get ourselves an all-time I don't know what from you. I don't want to call it a rant. I don't know what it would be, but it would be something fun.
If Florida State beats Miami, we're doing 4-hour shows next week, which I volunteered for us. Sorry about that, Tom. And secondly, we will spend much of that time making fun of Miami over and over and over and over again from every possible angle. It's a bit like dreaming to win the lottery. Highly unlikely. Not impossible. Highly unlikely. For Tom Lang, I'm Jeff Cameron. Thanks so much for listening and watching, everybody. We really appreciate you very, very much. Enjoy your Saturday as best you can, and go Noles. Go Noles. And we'll be back with you on the Jeff Cameron Show on Monday, obviously. Post-game show tonight, maybe in the fourth quarter, maybe right after the game, but Tom and Gene will have you covered. Take care, everybody.